Before we begin, I'd just like to say that this video is totally not a parody of Sliphantom's Unicum guides for World of Tanks, and that they totally did not inspire me to do this video. You also should totally not check out his channel, because he makes totally awful videos. Let's begin. The 1971 Plymouth Cuda is an American icon that way too many of those gosh darn Europeans have been un-Americanizing. This is because, when they get it, they rip out the brilliant engineering feat that is American suspension, and replace it with those pesky race springs and anti-roll bars, which makes their cars behave too normally. They might take our suspensions, but they will never take our freedom. God bless the United States of America. This guide won't be teaching you how to turn the Plymouth Cuda into the absolute best A-class car that you can take to ranked adventures. However, I will be instead teaching you how to turn the Cuda into what is arguably one of the most fun and unique driving experiences you can have in this game. Even though it makes the car pretty shit, but at least you'll feel like a god when you get a podium, or even first place. Let's learn how. The Cuda, as with any classic muscle car, has absurd amounts of body roll, and that's exactly what makes it so fun. Your car is swinging through the corners, it never loses grip, but it dances, and that's what makes it so much of an unique experience to drive. However, this might be frustrating to some people at first. When it comes to heaviness, body roll, and corner understeer, American cars are divided into three groups. Cars like the AMC Gremlin are float boats, then you have cargo ships like the Cuda, and finally, in the highest boat ranking of them all, you have the Charger Daytona, which is basically a Death Star. To teach you how to drive this peculiar four-wheeled boat, we have brought here our studio's professional racing driver. Some say he's so old that he's not actually a skeleton, but in fact a fossil. All we know is he is Sans from Undertale. Let's watch. In these cars with soft suspension, the key to maintaining your speed throughout a corner is inertia. It's all about weight shifting, and there is no better visual cue about your weight than your suspension. So make sure you watch it carefully. When you're approaching a corner, brake a little bit before the braking line, start downshifting as soon as you do, and turn in a bit earlier than usual. You want to hug the inside early with cars like this. As you're turning towards the apex, it's extremely important to not accelerate until your car is pointing towards the exit, as this car is absurdly understeery. If you want, you can tap the throttle as you're turning to keep your RPMs up. Once you're past the apex, which should be taken later than usual, step on the throttle, and be careful about understeer. Your biggest weakness is the fact that on high-speed corners your car absolutely refuses to turn. For these corners, simply letting go of the throttle should help, but if not, then tapping the brakes will prevent you from overspeeding. You're also very understeery on hairpins, not to mention you're not really all that fast in the straights. Honestly, this car is just shit. Why are you even watching? This go drive a bone shaker instead. Now that you've mastered all of this, it's time to move to the car itself. Thank you for showing us how to drive, Sans from Undertale. For this build in particular, I'm going to be replicating a Trans Am look for the Plymouth, so there will be a few steps you can skip that we will talk about. Start by getting race tires, and, because you're rear wheel drive, make them as thick as you can on the back. Just look at those thick muscle car tires. Also get track width on both the front and the back, because increased wheelbase. Because we're going for the Trans Am look, get Forza Aero on both the front and the back. I know I said Forza Aero is unnecessary on A-class cars, but that is assuming you're not driving a 70s boat with jelly suspension. If you'd like, you can skip the aero and get more power instead, but I wouldn't recommend it with this build. For drivetrain, get the usual, a race clutch, transmission, and differential. We'll come back for the driveline at the end. Get race brakes, and because you're a real American hero, keep your springs and anti-roll bars stock. We die like men, but you also want to get a race roll cage, because you don't want to die too hard. Finally, get race weight reduction. For obvious reasons. Driving a muscle car without weight reduction is suicide. Now for the engine parts, we usually prioritize getting camshafts above anything else. However, they don't really do much for this car in particular, so get a race exhaust, followed by intake manifolds, carburetor, and sports valves. If you've done everything correctly, you should be at 798 pi, which should be more than enough to get whatever shitty ricer rims you want on your car, or you can get some nice Trans Am styled ones. But if you're happy with the way your car looks, then go back to the engine and get race valves, followed by a sport flywheel. Although your PI is at 800, we cannot get a drive line, but depending on what wheels you went with, there's a chance you might be able to, so don't forget to go back and check. Now that your two number 9s are ready, it's time to prepare the rest of your order. Since we've got Forza Aero, we'll start with that first. Get full aero on the front, followed by about 50 to 75% on the rear depending on preference. I prefer 75. We can't tune anything related to the suspension, so from there, go to gearing and adjust your final drive towards acceleration until your top speed is 165 miles per hour or 265 kilometers per hour. It's a bit below average for A-Class, but that's because of the Forza Aero. Think of this car as a circuit car, because it's actually pretty good on those. Get 90% braking force pressure, so your brakes don't lock up. If you'd like you can set it to be even lower, since this car in particular locks up a lot. But I always run 90% on all of my asphalt cars. And lastly, for your differential, I like to keep everything stock, but if you think you can do better, don't let that stop you. And that's it. If you feel like all of that was too complicated, you can just download the tune from my Forza storefront. My gamer tag is Flamethrower XXX. I have 2 tunes available. If you're a man, download the one with the stock suspension. If you're a girl or a pussy, download the one with race suspension. Now that you're done with your order, go get some podium finishes, and remember that, no matter how many times you get round, understeer and lose, you'll still win by the end of the day, because you're more American than anyone else in the race. Goodbye, thank you for watching, and God bless the US of A.